So we're here today at Tunnel Barn Farm for the open match, which is on top and house pool, and I've drew peg 20 on the top pool. And what we've come here today to do is have a quick look at the venue before the Daiwa Pole Masters, which is at the end of next month. So it's just a little bit of a practice today for that, and we're just going to see if we can work a few things out that might obviously help for people who are coming down to fish that event, like I say, at the end of June. So looking at my peg today, it's quite a warm day today. It's going to go up to sort of 20, 22 degrees. So I imagine shallow fishing and mugging is going to play the main part of the day. It's got a nice bit of cover on this peg. I've got the lily pads at sort of 16 metres to my left there. So I'm definitely going to feed a shallow line there to hopefully catch a few F1s there. I've also got some nice reeds both sides in the edge where it's quite deep. So I'm going to feed again to fish shallow down the edges with casters. And then I'm also hopefully going to mug a few carp, because I have seen a few carp swimming around, so hopefully mug a couple of carp, which will be a nice bonus, fingers crossed. So we're going to start in about 5 minutes, fingers crossed for a good day. Right, so the all-in's just gone. I'm just going to start by feeding a few casters towards them pads. Try and start building that line up. I'm just going to have a quick start, I think, just trying to mug a carp, because I've seen a few swimming around, but can't actually see any at the minute, so maybe I'm going to have to drop in short and just have a quick look around. No, I can't actually see any at the minute, so I'm just going to start short, I think. Just put that down. I'm just going to start short on meat, just to give myself somewhere to start while I feed me other lines, try and build that caster line up for a good sort of half an hour at least before going on it. I don't expect there to be much to be caught on the bottom short today, but still going to start there and try and catch an early fish or two. So I'm just going to literally tap 6 or 8 bits of meat in. And see what happens. You can actually see there is a few carp off to me right there somewhere, but they're in the white water and I can't actually see them to actually mug them, so. I imagine it'll probably be quite a slow start for most of the day, and then obviously later in the day I think a few might come on the feed on the shallow lines. Let's fire them out again. Ooh. Quite difficult to fire your casters here because it's quite far, like a full 16 metres. Makes it difficult to group your casters together, but I definitely think fishing towards them pads is going to be important today. When that sun comes out, I think all the fish are just going to be hugging cover. Right, I can actually see a couple of carp pop up there now, so I'm just going to pick my mugging rig up. Like, fish in this lake that you can often catch mugging are really big fish. So if you can mug a few fish, it is going to be quite a low weight day. So that one's turned away. Can't quite see them great to me right there, to be fair. They're just in the white water for me there. See, there's a... Again, you can just see a couple of dark shapes, but just in that white water. See the size of them fish. There was a few there that didn't manage to catch one. I think that float's just wrapped over. Keep some casters going in long. Obviously what's noticeable there is, like, there was a couple in my peg then and I flicked in front of them and they just seemed to swim straight past. So some days that's what it can be like, and it can be very, very tricky to mug. Some days you'll pretty much catch everyone that you flick towards. So if I really do struggle to catch him, I won't waste too much time trying to do it, because I'll probably just spend all day chasing fish and not actually fishing. I think that was too close to the fish's mouth. Like, I haven't done a lot of this yet this year. It takes a bit of practice. Fish are there. Let me pull back. Bit of a tough one to know what to do at the minute, I think. Don't know whether I should just drop in short or sit and be patient and wait for the cart to swim past. But I don't think anyone's going to be bagging up at the minute. So, no rush. Right, so stuck my first fish of the day, just on that mugging rig. At the start, to be fair, I was probably getting a bit giddy and trying to go too quick and flicking at fish. I need to try and sort of slow it down, because obviously if they're decent fish what I catch, then I don't need to catch many of them. Like, I've seen people going feeding on the short line, not really caught a lot, so I don't feel like I'm missing much not being in short. Not a massive carp, but it's a carp to start the day. £3, £3.5. One thing I do need to get out is my fish counter. Like here at Tunnel Barn, the net limit's £65, and if you go over £70 you lose your net, so you obviously got to be very careful with your net limits. I probably won't go to any more than £50 in a net before starting a new net, just to be on the safe side. So loose feed a few casters to them pads. Again, them fish are just in that white water. Just makes it difficult to actually spot the fish. I'm going to try and keep your pole back from the fish really, and then I think there's one actually just swimming past close in here. Ooh. I'm sure I've seen one then just swimming quite deep under the water. I think later in the day the sun's going to get really high and it's going to be really hot, and I think it should then be a lot easier to actually pick out the individual fish. So at the minute you can just see an odd shape, but you can't actually pick the fish out properly. It's quite difficult. Keep trying to build me caster line up the best I can. Actually a fish in this edge here now. Ooh, swam through my line. I think based on the signs what I'm seeing, I'm going to start feeding some casters in the edge as well. I do feel like everything's swimming around shallow today, so I don't feel like I'm going to want to try and catch them on the bottom in the edge. I just think it's going to be best just to loose feed some casters, try and catch them shallow. So just chucking them in and amongst the reeds. Hopefully then a few casters will sort of stick in the reeds, bring them fish up. So like now I haven't actually seen anything swim past for a while. Just going to be patient, because like I say, most of the people I've seen start short and sit feeding, they haven't really caught much, so ooh, let's put another section on. Ooh. So, just caught that one. Actually broke off at my 11 metre section. I was a little bit short of the fish, so I had to put another section on. and it took straight off for them lily pads. That's one thing I'm going to have to watch out if I do keep hooking some of these big fish. So I imagine they will want to get in them lily pads. Nice fish. Another common, bit bigger this one, probably 6 or 7 pound, which is like, especially early in the day, it's a brilliant start. Probably got sort of 10 pound now with them 2 fish. I've sort of been fishing 20 minutes, so considering I feel like I've sort of been wasting a bit of time flicking this rig around, it actually shows you just shows you how quick you can build a bit of a weight when you catch them decent fish on this mugging. Keep loose feeding a few casters towards them lily pads, and a few in either edge. Try and build my other lines up. See, that last chuck I sort of sat there for sort of 30 seconds, a minute short here waiting to see a fish, and then one swum past and I shipped out and caught it. So I think I just need to be a bit more patient, not rush. I should hopefully catch another one. It just gives me chances to keep loose feeding casters on them pads. There's one there now. See, he's just spooked away from that then. Bring the pole back. Just sit and wait. Sure, I just spotted one. Ooh. This one's trying to get me towards them snags there. Oh, done me. That's the only problem with this peg where I am, like, them snags, fish can easily just take me straight through them like that one. Looked like a decent fish as well, but it's one of them things. Got some decent kit on, like that was 015 powerline hook length, 019 main line, and a 15 Jura slip, and you can see quite how fast them fish can literally just run you through. Like, you can't really afford to be losing them sort of fish now. I thought that the kit what I'd put on would be heavy enough to land them fish, but when you are fishing in and around snags, they can take you in really fast. Right, so caught them two carp mugging. Lost that one that took me through the pot, but then I've stopped seeing them come through my peg, to be honest. They've actually just moved up a touch up the lake, and you can actually see them sat in the corner up there. So just come off it and swap to the shallow caster line which I've been feeding to the lily pads, and caught an F1 first chuck, so it's a good start. Obviously we've been priming this line for sort of, I don't know, 40 minutes, so you're bound to go in and catch a couple of fish straight away, but it's a good sign to have caught one. See, actually there's an odd carp starting to come back through now that I've stopped mugging, so I'll leave them alone for a bit, I think, and just concentrate on this shallow line because I've caught an F1. The only problem with this shallow line to these pads is it is a really long way, so it makes it difficult to feed it regularly and accurate, and obviously it's quite slow shipping in and out. But we can catch an F1 most chucks there, or an hide, or there's a lot of silverfish in this lake to be caught, then I'm doing well, because I'm not expecting the weights to be massive today. So we've just had a little sign again there, and again could be small fish. So like I say, it's quite difficult to loose feed your casters accurate to that distance. You've just got to sort of try and spray them in close to the water. So that wind's just picked up actually a little bit, and it's blowing in my face now, which is making it even more difficult to feed the casters there. It's a bit frustrating. I've had a bite though. I think, like, particularly yesterday, it was noticeable for the first time that fish are starting to think about spawning. An odd fish crashing about on the lakes. And now everything's hugging the cover. So fishing by the pads and fishing in the edges, light, shallow, definitely going to be an advantage over fishing in the open water. Little stocky mirror carp, £1.5, £2. So all I'm doing in terms of my rig, with it being quite a flat, calm day, and there's not a lot of ripple on the water, so I'm just using a little dibber rig, quite a long line between float and pole. So same sort of thing as the mugging rig, where I've got quite a long line between float and pole. All it's to try and do is stop spooking the fish. And I've just got a little back shot above the float just to help keep that line tight. Which in turn should stop me missing too many bites. Just give it a couple of slaps when I initially go in. See a little sign again. I think there is a few small fish there as well, because it seems like when I get a bite off a proper fish, it just pulls the elastic out like that. Try and keep it away from the snags. Like I say, it is difficult shipping this full length of the pole, but if I can keep coming back with a fish, it'll be well worth it. A little stocky F1. Right, so just over an hour and a half in. And obviously last time we caught up I was fishing out towards the pads, but I caught a couple of fish there straight away, but then actually lost 2 or 3 fish on the bounce, and they were running me straight through the pads, and I tried stepping up my elastic, and to be honest it made no difference. They were really quick and they took me straight in the pads. So because I'd been feeding my edges, throwing some casters down there, and I actually seen Dell on the peg to my left go in down the edge shallow and catch a few, I decided to have a look in my edges, and I have had quite a good run down there. Probably caught about 10 fish down here now. Just fishing my little dibber rig, the same one I was using out long with the long lash, and just throwing a few casters in the reeds and just out from the reeds. Fishing sort of between a foot and 18 inches deep. It's weird, you almost at times you don't get any indications, you don't even see the fish there, and you get a bite out the blue, so there's obviously some fish just sat hugging under the cover, and every now and again one will come out and you'll catch him. It's loose feeding a few casters. Got a fish now, looks like a little stocky F1 or something. There is a few of them about today. Nice, we're getting some bites, putting a odd fish in the net. Smallish F1. And I'm loose feeding my right hand edge as well. I've only actually caught one down there, but I have seen a few signs of some fish down there that are spawning, so hopefully I'll catch a few up there a bit later. And I'm still feeding a few casters out towards the pads to keep that ticking over, just in case I do need to drop back in on it if this line dries up. But if I can catch like this, it's much nicer, because obviously it's closer to me and I'm not having the trouble with getting snagged up. Ooh, just missed a little bite then. And like, it's great getting regular bites out towards them pads, but if I'm not putting any weight in the net, because I'm losing quite a few of them, it's not worth doing. So another thing I've obviously got to consider is there is still an odd carp swimming about. Like every now and again while I'm fishing in this edge, I look out and there's a few carp swimming about, and it can be hard to ignore them, but because I'm getting a few bites down this edge, you know, I don't really want to be here, there and everywhere. I want to try and settle on a few methods if I can, and make sure I'm putting something in the net. See, I just missed another little bite then. There's definitely a few fish there. Keep throwing a few casters in after I put the fish, try and bring some fish back. Now that's nice and efficient, that, if I do have a good run there. You can do a big weight really quick. Like the average stamp seems to be sort of £1.5 to £2 F1s. So if you go in and get a good run there quick and you're catching literally at top 6 down the edge, you can do a really big weight. And like obviously on this lake all your cover's in your edges, and that seems to be where the fish are at the minute. So again, lay it in. It is quite difficult to slap your rig in down this edge with obviously the sticks, and there's some stuff in the water which makes it hard to, but just lay it in, pull it against the grass, and just throw your casters. See a little salmon I threw my bait there, and again, maybe next chuck I'll just shallow up an inch or so. Just missed a couple of bites straight away that time. Keep that bait going in long. You rig up and just lay it in again. I'm going to come back and just alter my depth. I actually think I'm just going to edge it up an inch or so. I think just a lot of the time when you're fishing shallow, like just changing your depth by a touch just keeps you in touch with the fish that are in your peg. Like it's easy when you have a good run and you're going in at the same depth and you're catching, to get a bit lazy with that and just stick at the same depth. But one thing I've found when you're fishing shallow, particularly for F1s, is just making small little adjustments in your depth can help you keep catching for longer. So again, I've just altered my depth a touch again, just another couple of inches on, so I'm probably down to sort of about 14 inch now. And I keep throwing me some casters down my right, because obviously I'm not going to be able to just keep dropping in here all day and keep catching, otherwise you'd catch a massive weight. You know, you're going to need to keep resting it and just feeding a few casters and dropping back in. So keep feeding your other lines, like I keep feeding my right hand side, keep having a look in there. Just caught another now, just maybe they've just dropped the touch deeper. Like I say, just been alternating my depths. Just like I say, helps you keep in touch with them fish as they drop. I think when there's obviously a lot of fish in your peg, they'll come up really high. There's actually someone else's feeder attached to that, banjo feeder. So that was a good one to catch him and get rid of that was attached to him. But like I say, yeah, keep feeding all your other lines, keep some casters going in long, keep some casters going in on my right edge, even though I haven't caught a great deal there. Just gives me somewhere else to go. And obviously they might come there later on in the match. So I'm just going to keep plugging away with this, hopefully get another good run. Right, so we've got an hour to go now, and like I say, I rested me edge, had a bit of a mug, caught 2 more carp, and I've come back in down the edge, and although it's not as good as it was before, I am getting an odd bite, and I think, as I say, people are struggling on the lake, it's not fishing great, so quite happy just getting an odd bite down this edge now. Like I said, I'm still feeding me other lines, catching a few casters out towards the pads and throwing them down my right edge. Trying to make sure I leave myself somewhere to go if this does dry up. But to be honest, I think my main part of my match now is just going to be trying to tick along, catch what I can, and hopefully get myself up to a ton, which should hopefully be enough to frame. I don't know obviously how they've got on in the top bowl on this lake, and I don't know how they've caught on house, but based on the weights yesterday, I'd have thought if I've got somewhere in the region of £100, I won't be a million miles off being in the frame, which I'd be happy with today, I think. So keep ticking along. I've got probably £85 to £90 now, so if I have a good last hour, I might be able to push myself up to £110, £120, but if not, and it's just an odd bite, then I think if I get myself over the ton, I shouldn't be a million miles off. All I've found best with this edge today is just fishing sort of between sort of a foot and 18 inch deep, mainly around a 12-14 inch has been best. Just keep relaying your rig in, keep throwing a few casters, and just trying to keep active with it, keep your bait on the move, and just try and trick a fish into taking your up bait. Like, I don't think there's ever been a massive fish down the edge feeding. I just think there's an odd fish sort of sunning themselves under the grass, trying to take shade under the grass, and then every now and again one will venture out and take your caster. So I keep feeding an odd bit of bait, keep relaying your rig, you can sort of catch an odd one. And then just going to keep some casters going in long. Like, that hasn't been great at all today. Ooh, just actually bumped one then. That hasn't been great at all today, that long line. Like, there has been some fish there, but it was like every time you hook one, it just runs you through the pads. I think they're actually stockier F1s what are out there, and when you hook them, they run you through so quick. You don't even have a chance to ship back, particularly at that sort of length when you're shipping out 16 metres every time. It's just not productive doing that. But, if late on in the day we do need somewhere to go for a bite, I'm keeping feeding it, just hopefully we won't have to use it, but if I do, then it's still there as an option. So I'm glad that the fish have actually come back on this line, because, like I say, I was getting a bit worried that it wasn't going to happen. I kept feeding my line, and this is one thing I want to stress, is like, I haven't stopped feeding all my lines today, even lines which I haven't really caught on, just because you never know when you need another line or when the fish are going to turn up and have a feed on that particular line. So I was confident in the methods that I was fishing, in terms of fishing shallow next to the cover on all my lines was, the right method. So I didn't want to deviate from that when I stopped catching. I didn't want to say, let's plumb up a new line and fish on the bottom. I just wanted to keep feeding my lines and, be confident that hopefully if the fish wanted to have a bit of a feed, that they'd come back, and luckily they have, and I've managed to have a decent little spell here now. So what's been noticeable is the fish seems to have just started to just sit a bit further away from me, like round the back of the reed. So every now and again I've just been flicking it just past, and I have managed to catch a couple doing that as well. It's almost as if they want to come towards the feed, but they're just a bit cautious of coming right underneath my pole tip where I've been feeding. So just flicking it past and just flicking it out and in and around my feed, just been able to catch an odd one, and like the good S1s that I'm catching. So you don't need to catch them really quick, just keep flicking it in and around where I'm fishing. Just being able to keep catching an odd fish. It's a really funny time of year, this, at the minute, like where the fish are all in the cover, all wanting to spawn. They don't really want to feed. You've just really got to try and trick them into getting them on the up. It's definitely not a time of year where you're just going to go in, feed a load of bait and empty it. Thinking carefully about where you're going to be fishing, like over these next few weeks now. I think fishing right in the edges and fishing near the cover is definitely going to be the best method, because that's where all the fish are going to want to sit. So keep me right hand line fed. I've only probably caught a handful of fish off that today, 4 or 5 fish, but on a tough day they've been a welcome bonus, like 4 or 5 fish that I wouldn't have caught if I'd not fed it. So just going to keep plugging away with this now, and hopefully it keeps going till the end and I'll have a good weight. Okay, well, last couple of minutes of the match now, and after having a good little run sort of from an hour to go to sort of half an hour to go, I had a nice little run, and then it's just died off now. I had a look back out on the pads. I did catch actually a little carp, then I was just catching small silvers, a couple of little skimmers, a couple of little tiny little stockies. So just had a drop back in my edge, and I just caught a little ghosty F1. Ooh, just foul up something then. It's the all out. So we'll have to see what I end up with. Right, so I'm quickly just going to run through the rigs what I set up on the day. And there was 3 main rigs what I've used, so I'm going to talk through each one. The first rig I'm going to talk about is the mugging rig. And that's just been set up, like I say, because it was quite a warm day and there was a few carp cruising about, and it's been quite good on the day. I've had 5 carp on it, so not loads of bites, but they've been decent fish and have been a big chunk of my weight, so I'll talk you through that now. So the elastic, I've just got a size 15 Preston Jura slip. The reason I've gone for this is because it's nice and soft on the strike, so when I hook a fish mugging, it doesn't, you know, bow wave out my peg. I get these swim out the peg nicely, but it's also strong enough to land them carp. And to be fair, I did actually lose one of the carp, so I probably could have stepped up even more, but just thought this was a nice sort of balance for the fish what I was catching. The main line's 019 reflow power, so really strong. Again, just needs to be durable for these big fish. The float is a Mick Wilkinson cookie, and the reason I like these floats is because they sit really quick with the wire stem, and they take a nice amount of shot. They take 4 number 9 stots, and I just found that's a nice amount of weight just to be able to swing out, but they don't make too loud a noise. They don't make a real like splash when you put it in. And that was set around a foot deep, and then I just had an 0.15 power line hook length and a size 14 Super LWG hook for fishing 2 or 3 maggots. So the next rig I'm going to talk about is the shallow rig, which I've caught most of my fish on today. And because it was flat calm today, and like you've seen, I've used quite a long lash between float and pole, even on me shallow rig for the F1s. And the reason that is just to try and keep my pole tip away, and that's been my main rig I've caught all my fish on today. So it's got a 13 Preston hollow elastic. I used that because I was also using this rig for fishing across to the pads, so I needed a decent elastic to try and pull them away. But even in the edges, it's been perfect for the F1s. It's been nice and soft, it's been good. I've got 017 Powerline mainline. One number 8 back shot, just because I've got my long lash rig, I just need a back shot to help me hit the bites. I've got an RW number 2 dibber, which is me float what I always use for fishing shallower than 18 inch deep. And then I've shotted it with one number 11 under the float and two number 11 strung out down the line, 2 inch hook length and a size 16 Super LWG hook. And the best depth's been between sort of a foot and 18 inches. And then the final rig, I've not actually caught anything on this today, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because it's a rig that, if it was a bit of a cooler day, could have worked really well on this peg today, which is me meat rig for short. So I've got an 11 Jura slip, just nice and soft, perfect for all my F1s, just ideal for that sort of fishing. No snags or anything obviously on that line, I'm fishing in the open water. I've got 015 reflow power mainline, 2 number 8 back shot, 4x14 RW Maggie, and then that's just shotted with a bulk of number 8s and 2 number 10 droppers with a 4 inch hook length and a size 16 Super LWG hook. So that's all the rigs from today. So the bait choice today has been dead simple. I knew that because my main approach was going to be shallow fishing, that the main bait I was going to bring with me was casters. So that has been my main bait. And as you can see, I've not got many left. And I did bring quite a few with me today. I bought about a gallon. And I've literally got a tiny handful left. Because obviously I've had 3 lines on the go with casters. So when you are going to do that, you do need plenty of bait so you can keep all your lines fed all through the day. But dead simple, just some casters. The next bait that I bought with me was for fishing short, and that was just meat, 6mm cube meat. I haven't really used that, as you can see. I've got it all left. I've not actually ended up fishing it in the end. I started on it quickly, but that's about it. But again, another bait that's been working really well at Tunnel Barn recently is meat, so it's a bait that I wouldn't be without. And the only other bait I've bought is just for a hook bait for when I was mugging or maybe for shallow, was some white and red maggots, and I've just used them today on the hook. And the double white maggot's been my best hook bait for mugging. So I just want to talk about a couple of key aspects of me shallow rig what I've used today. Firstly, I've actually banded a caster, so I just want to show you quickly how I do that. The hook length I've got is a 2 inch hook length of 014 tournament down to a size 16 LWG and a little Drennan mini bait band tied in a loop, and that just means that the band just runs free in the loop and it just makes your presentation better in my opinion. So I just want to show you how to band the caster now. So I just get a nice sort of goldeny coloured caster. I find they don't pop as easy and they're more durable when you're catching a lot of fish. And you just literally slide the band onto the caster, and that just presents the caster perfectly like that. And it just means that you can catch a few fish on one hook bait and you don't strike your hook bait off, and you don't, have problems with bumping fish because your hook point isn't exposed. Ideal for when you're fishing for F1 shallow. Right, so I'm just going to have a quick conclusion from the day. I've ended up weighing 133 pounds, which has been good enough to win the match, so I'm really happy with that. It's been a tough day, but I've managed to have a couple of good spells down that edge, and it's been an enjoyable day. Nice to be out in the sun and catch a few fish. Overall on the day, it's fished quite hard, like I say. I think second's been off house pool with about 80 odd pound, and I think it's a 68 pound off the peg next to me, Del Brady. I think he's had 68 pounds, so you can see that it has been quite difficult. But obviously there's been a few key things what I think's helped me today in terms of catching a few more fish. So obviously I want to talk about them now. I think it was noticeable yesterday. I come here yesterday to fish the Fishermania qualifier and everything wanted to be in cover. And as you've seen today, the main approach has been shallow up to the lily pads where I've had a few fish. and then shallow against the reeds and the edges, and that's been key, that has, today. If you're not against the cover and tight against the cover, you just don't seem to catch any fish at the minute. I think with the fish wanting to spawn, they're all hugging cover, and I think it's key to be fishing right up against him in terms of trying to catch a few fish. Other things that has been important today, obviously with it being a nice warm flat day, mugging some fish. I've managed to catch 5 or 6 carp mugging, and that's been quite a decent chunk of weight, probably somewhere in the region of 30 odd pounds. So well worth having a mugging rig set up wherever you're going at the minute. I think that's crucial, because if a decent fish does swim past you and you catch it, it's like a free fish, and at the minute with it being quite difficult, it's really important. And then other than that, it's just been a case of constantly feeding me lines, keep rotating my lines, feeding casters, and it's ended up, being enough to win the match, so I'm really happy with that. Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed today's live match. If you have, then don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, all the products that I've used today are available on matchwinningedges.com.